Exam 1 review problems. Question 1a, let's multiply the 3. So 3x minus 3 times 2 is 6, so 3x minus 6 on the left side. On the right side you have 9 minus 21, and then minus minus is plus, so this is what you get. Now let's simplify the right side as 9 minus 21 is 21 minus 9 with a minus sign, so it's negative 12 plus x. Subtract x both sides, so you get 2x equals to 2x minus 6 equals to negative 12, because 3x minus x gives you 2x. And now add 6 both sides, you get negative 12 plus 6, which is negative 6. And then finally dividing by 2, you get x equals to negative 3. This one you can multiply by 10 to everything, so you have 2x plus 30 equals to 80 minus 3x. So 0.2 times 10 is 2, 3 times 10 is 30, 8 times 10 is 80, 0.3 times 10 is 3. Now add 3x both sides. On the other hand, subtract 30 both sides. So you end up with 5x equals to 50, which gives you x equals to 50 divided by 5, and that's equal to 10. Okay. Right, next question. If you look at the denominators 3, 4, and 6, the least common multiple is 12. In other words, 12 is a multiple of 3 and 4 and 6, and I would like to multiply by 12 because that's going to cancel all the denominators away. So 12 will be multiplied by 2/3 x, 12 will be now multiplied by the 1/4, and then 12 will be multiplied by 3x minus 7 over 6. Now this allows us to now do 12 divided by 3, which will give you 4. So it will be 4 times 2 times x. And then 12 divided by 4 is 3, so it's 3 times 1. And here 12 divided by 6 is 2, so 2 times 3x minus 7 is what you get. Okay, now you have 8x minus 3 equals to, if I multiply by 2, it's 6x minus 14. Subtract 6x both sides, and also add 3 both sides. And that's going to give you 2x equals to negative 11, so that the answer is x equals to negative 11 over 2. To solve for a, we need to get rid of the 1/2 and h. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by 2 and also divide it by h, or multiply by 1 over h. Now multiplying 2 and 1 over h is going to cancel those 1/2 and 1/2 and the h. So we're going to have this 2 and the 1/2 will cancel each other because they're reciprocals, and 1 over h and h will cancel each other because they're reciprocals. So what you end up with is you have 2a over h on the left side, because when you multiply something to a fraction, it only gets multiplied to the top, right? And on the right side, you just have a plus b. And then, since you're solving for a, b has to go, so we're going to subtract b both sides. 2a over h minus b is going to be a. And another way to write this is, if you solve for a variable, usually you write the variable on the left side. So we're going to say the answer is this. Now, for this next question, the trouble with this question is that you see h appearing twice, and that has to be handled first. You can only solve for a variable if it only appears just once. So how do you make this h appear only once? Well, you take these two terms and factor an h out. So you delete this h, you delete this h, and then you factor the h outside. Now that you just have a single h, that allows you to solve this. First, let's move the 2lw to the other side, so it's s minus 2lw. And you have this. And then now with this, we're going to divide by 2lw. So we're going to divide the entire thing by to divide this entire thing by 2w plus 2l. Okay, same thing here. Divide by 2w plus 2l. Okay, and as an end result, since this is same as this one, that's going to cancel away, leaving you just h, and that's going to be equal to this, which is the simplest you can get. Unfortunately, you might you might want to cancel this 2 with these two, but that's not allowed. If you pick numbers for s and w and l, and if you try it, you'll see that canceling this 2 with these two, if you do that, you get something not equal. So don't do that. This is the simplest as you can get. Okay, word problems. Jane bought children's toys to be donated to a local charity. She bought dolls that cost $12 each and toy cars that cost $15 each. If the number of toys she donated was 30 and it cost her $393, how many dolls did she buy? Okay, so although some of you might be able to just write down the equation right away, sometimes it's easier to see what's going on by doing guess and check. So let's just do guess and check. And by the way, this is not a proper solution, and you won't be getting any credit for this work. Okay, but it really is helpful. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that x is toy cars. No, dolls. So it's the number of dolls. And then we'll also say y is equal to number of toy cars. Okay. And if we read the question, it seems like the number of toys she donated was 30, so we're doing guess and check. So let's just say, for simplicity, we'll buy $20 and 10 toy cars and see what happens. Okay, so say x is 20 and then y is 10. Let's see what happens. Okay, we know that dolls cost 12 each, so how much is the total for the dolls? You're buying 20 dolls that cost 12 each, right? So it's $240. On the other hand, we have toy cars that are 15 each, and we bought 10 of them, so 10 times 15 is 150. Okay, so what does that give us? Well, if you add these two amounts, you get $390. So total cost equals to $390, and that really doesn't match. But you know what, you can kind of see that because these are pretty close, it must be very close to these numbers. So you might even try like 19 and 11 or 21 and 9 and see which one works. And that's how you can do guess and check. But that's not the purpose. I really want you to try this out, and from this to be able to come up with an equation. So now the equation. Well, trace back what you did. What is this 20? That 20 is x, right? So instead of writing down the hard number 20, we're going to replace this by x. Same thing here. Instead of 10, we're going to replace this by y. And then, what was the total cost? We got the total cost by adding these two numbers, right? So our total cost must be 12x plus 15y. That's our total cost. Now, another thing that we need to make sure is that, see, x and y are both, they should add up to 30. That was one of the requirements, right? So I think when we choose the x and y, x plus y must equal to 30. That's one requirement. And then the other requirement is that the total cost, which is 12x plus 15y, must equal to 393. Okay. So this is the proper way to receive the credit. Now, if you have an equation like this, how do you solve a system of equations? You solve it by solving for y first, right? So you have y equals to 30 minus x from the first equation, and then take this and put it into the second equation. You replace y by 30 minus x. That's how you solve such a thing. So it's 12x plus 15, 30 minus x equals to 393. Okay, so you have 12x plus 450 minus 15x equals to 393. And then because 12x minus 15x is 3x, minus 3x, it will be 450 minus 3x equals to 393. And let's add 3x to the other side while subtracting the 393 on this side. So you get 450 minus 393 equals to 3x. Now, what is 450 minus 93? That's 57. So you get 57 equals to 3x. And if you divide by 3 both sides, you get 57 divided by 3, which is equal to 19. Okay. And since x is 19, y must be 30 minus 19. So since you bought 19 dolls, the number of toys should be 11, so that they add up to 30 toys in total. Okay. So the question is, how many dolls did she buy? And the answer is 19 dolls. So answer is 19 dolls. Now the question could be how many toy cars? Then the answer would be 11, right? So that's how you do it. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, this next question is about distance, speed, and time. Speed, things like that. In all of these questions, you just have to remember that on the highway, speed is measured miles per hour, right? And that means that speed is measured by dividing the number of miles by the hours, because per means divide. Or another way to say it is that speed is distance divided by time, because miles is distance, miles is a unit for the distance, and hours is the way we measure time, right? So that's how you should remember this formula, that speed is distance over time. But then after that, you should also multiply by t both sides to get d equals to st, which is usually the most favorite formula for us. and also sometimes we need time equals to distance over speed as well. So these three formulas are a must for any word problems dealing with distance and time, so you should start off by writing this on top. Okay. Alright, so then the next thing to do is to make a table of each scenarios. Usually for these questions you have two kinds of scenarios, or sometimes it might give three, but let's just go with two. So I'm going to insert a table that's like this. So there's the speed, distance, and time. It doesn't have to be in this order, just make sure that you have a speed and distance and time to fill it in. And then if you read the question, now let's read the questions. This part will be common for any word problem dealing with speed, so just make sure that you have these ready. Now let's read the question. 1 hour and 20 minutes after a hiker started down a mountain trail, a ranger started after him on horseback and took him in 40 minutes. Find the speed of each if the ranger rode 6 miles per hour faster than the man walked. Okay, so apparently the two scenarios are the man and the ranger. Okay, and we have to talk about the speeds of the man and the ranger. Okay, so let's ask the speed. Do we know the speed of the man, or the hiker to be better? Hiker. Well, we don't. In fact, that was the one of the questions, right? We need to know what these are. Okay, so we don't put an X there. Do we know the distance? We don't know that either, so we put a Y. How about the time? Well, it seems like the hiker walked for 1 hour and 20 minutes. Now this is a bit problematic. See, 1 hour and 20 minutes should be converted into hours only. So how do you convert 20 minutes into hour? Well, see, one way to think about it is 3 times 20 minutes gives you 60 minutes, right? So that means 20 minutes is a third of an hour, because 60 minutes is 1 hour, right? It takes 20 minutes to give you an hour, so 20 minutes, 1/3 of an hour. Another way to think about it is just to simply say that 1 minute equals to 1 over 60 hours, right? Because 60 minutes is 1 hour, so 1 minute is 60 hours. And then you multiply 20 both sides, and you get 20 minutes equals to 1 over 60, no, 20 over 60 hours. And because of that, because 20 over 60 is 2 over 6, which is 1 over 3, so you get 1/3 hours. Okay, so once you are okay with converting 20 minutes into 1/3 of an hour, now you can say that 1 hour and 20 minutes is 1 hours and 1/3 hours, right? But in pre-calculus, we don't use mixed fractions, so we'll make this improper by rewriting 1 as 3 over 3, so that if you add the top, it's 4 over 3. So it's 4 over 3 hours. Okay, so that took a while, but with that hard work, we know that 4 over 3 is the time. Let's now work with the ranger. Do we know the ranger's speed? Well, it says 6 miles per hour faster than the man walked. Well, the speed of the hiker is x, so the speed of the ranger would be x plus, it'll be x plus 6. Now, some of you might wonder, what if we, instead of using hours, change this to minutes? Because this will be 60 minutes plus 20 minutes, which is 80 minutes. Well, it's possible, but then you will need to change this one because the speed is now measured in miles per hour. So you have to change that to miles per minutes, and that's another work. So it's better to stick to hours. Okay. All right. So now, what about the distance? Well, it says it's not so clear in the beginning, but if you read the question several times, you realize that the ranger overtook him in 40 minutes, which means that they ended up being at the exact same location. So at 40 minutes after the ranger started chasing the hiker, they are exactly in the same spot, which means the distance they traveled are equal. So this will also be y. Okay, and on the other hand, the time that ranger took was 40 minutes. Again, the same kind of idea. 40 minutes would be 40 over 60 hours. So 40 minutes equals to 40 divided by 60 hours. But if you cancel the 0 top and bottom, and then you do 4 over 6, divide top and bottom by 2, you get 2 over 3 hours. So it will be 2/3. Okay, so let's move this away over here. And let's now work with the table. Now, as I said before, our favorite equation is this one because that one doesn't have any fractions. So let's try to use this, apply it to each of the scenarios. So distance is y. For the hiker, distance is y, speed is x, and time is 4 over 3. Okay. And usually we write numbers in front of x, so let's write down y equals to 4 over 3x. Okay, so that's what you get from the first one. And then in the second one, again, distance is y, speed is x plus 6, and then you multiply by 2 over 3. Now, what's really important is that when you multiply x plus 6 to this number, you need this parenthesis. Without the parenthesis surrounding it, what you write will be wrong. You have to make sure you have a parenthesis because this 2/3 is not just being multiplied to 6, but it's being multiplied to entire x plus 6. Okay, so now what? It's a system of equations. You have one equation, another equation. Yeah, let's write this again and just write it as a system of equations. So you have this one as one equation, and the other one is this one, but usually we write down the number first, so let's move this number in front. Okay, so this is the system of equations. You have two unknowns, x and y, and you have two equations, which means you can solve it, and you solve it by plugging in one to the other. So since it's already solved for y, let's just take this thing and replace the y over here. Okay, so what does that give us? Let's see. Set it equal. And because I don't like fractions, let's multiply by 3 both sides. So that after multiplying by 3, it's 4x equals to 2 times x plus 6. And then multiplying the 2 to both x and 6, you get 2x plus 12. Subtract the 2x both sides, so you get 2x equals to 12. And then finally you get x equals to 6. Okay, so x is 6. What does that mean? That means that the hiker's speed is now, no, it's 6. Now, if hiker's speed is 6, then the ranger's speed would be 12. Okay, And we can also know the y, because if x is 6, 6 times 4 is 24. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So we know that they both went for 8 miles. Okay, so we now know everything. What was the question again? Let's see. The question is find the speed of each. So we need to find the ranger and the man. So answer is man walked 6 miles per hour and ranger rode 6 plus 6, which is 12 miles per hour. Okay, so that's the answer. Okay, another, number 5, another distance speed problem. Let's start with the obvious formulas. Speed is distance over time. Distance is speed times time. And time is distance over speed. Okay, and then we'll also need a table like before, so I'll just copy this one. Okay, and then we'll just empty out these things. Alright, so now let's read the question. A lady drove 30 miles away to return, so to and returned. Okay, return trip and going. Okay, so going and return. Those are the two scenarios, right? And we'll just start reading the speed, distance, and time. Okay, so do we know the speed? Well, it does say 3/4 as fast as when returning, blah blah blah. So we do know something. But we don't know exactly what it is, so we'll put this as x. It's unknown. Now what about distance? Oh, distance is given, it's 30. So let's put 30. How about time? Well, she spent 15 minutes longer driving the return trip than the going. So we don't know how long it took for the going or the return. We just know that return trip was 15 minutes longer. And here, one thing that we should make sure is what to do with the time. Since we were using hours before, let's stick with hours, but definitely you can solve this using minutes as well. But I want to put time is unknown, so it's y. But when we see this 15 minutes longer driving and return trip than in the going, we first have to convert 15 minutes to hours. So 15 minutes, well, if you have 4 15 minutes, you end up with 1 hour, right? So that means 15 minutes is equal to a quarter of an hour. So we're going to say that in the return trip, it was a quarter more than going. Okay. All right. So she drove 3/4 as fast when returning as she did when going to the city. Okay, so returning was slower. Yeah, that's why it took longer, right? Yeah, so it took me a bit to understand what it's saying is that returning was slow than when she was going to the city. So the speed of returning was 3/4 as fast. Now, some of you might immediately see this and say, oh, this means it's 3/4 times x. But some of you might not easily see this. So you have to think about what it means. So, for example, if it's like half as fast, what does that mean? that means like if going was 60 miles per hour, then coming was half of 60, right? 60 times 1/2, so that that gave you 30 miles per hour. That's how you calculate something when you say something as fast. So in the same manner, if it's 3/4 as fast, what does that mean? If the going is, say, 80 miles per hour, that's dangerously fast. But let's just, for the sake of argument, let's think about this. And then returning would be, this is what I'm returning. Returning would be, half would be 40, but it's 3/4. It's faster than 40. It's 60. Okay, so 60 miles per hour would be the return trip. But how do you calculate from 80? Well, you do 80 times 3/4. Okay, so seeing this, just do some examples, and you'll see right away that yes, indeed, when you say it's 3/4 as fast, you're supposed to multiply 3/4 to the original speed. Okay, so hopefully that was reasonable. Now, oh, and then the distance is still 30 because you're going the same route. Okay, so hopefully that was reasonable. Now let's apply this d equals to st to each of the scenarios and see what we get. Okay, so we have 30 equals to x times y, and then 30 equals to 3/4 of x times y plus 1/4. That's what we see. Okay, and as usual, our way of solving things is to solve for one variable and plug it into the next, right? So let's solve this for y. How do you solve this for y? You have to get rid of x, but x is multiplied, so to get rid of x, the opposite of multiplication is division, so you divide by x both sides and you get y equals to 30 divided by x. And that is going to be plugged in here. So let's plug it into next. So y is now replaced by 30 over x. And then, well, you can multiply this to each one of them. So let's do that. So 3/4 of x is multiplied to this item and also this item. What do I get if I do that? I get you get this times 30 over x, but then plus this times 1/4. Okay. Now I like the fact that x and x cancels away. Right? So let's cancel them out, which now becomes after x is canceled away, this just becomes times 30. And then now let's handle how to multiply a number to a fraction. Well, a number gets multiplied to a fraction only by multiplying to the top. You don't multiply to the bottom, it's only to the top. 3 times 30 is 90, because 3 times 3 is 9. And then same way, this will be x on top. Now, but then this is fraction times a fraction. If you multiply two fractions, it's top to top, bottom to bottom, so you end up with 3x times 1 on top and 4 times 4 on the bottom, which is 16, right? So that's going to go away. So that's what you get. Oh, sorry, 4 times 4, which is 16. All right, so simplifying yet one more time. The top is just 3x, the bottom is 16. Now the thing I don't like about this is that this has fractions. I don't like fractions, so let's multiply by 16 to everything, because then the fractions will go away. So I'll be doing 16 times 30, and then 16 times 90 over 4, and 16 times 3 over 16. 16 times 30 is 480. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 4 times 9 is 360. And then this 16 is going to cancel this 16, so you're only going to have 3x. Okay, that works. That's nice. If you subtract 360 both sides, you end up with 3x being equal to 120. And if you divide by 3 both sides, you get x equals to 120 over 3, which is equals to 40. So we know that since x is the speed, it must be 40 miles per hour. Okay, so x is 40 miles per hour, and the question is this y. Y is the question. How long did it take to drive to the city? So it's the going one. So let's solve this by computing y, and you get the y by using this one. So you have 30, y is 30 over 40. So this is, because it's distance, this is in miles. And if you simplify this, this is a 0.75 miles, or 3/4 of a mile. So the answer is the distance. No, sorry. Distance is 30. Sorry. Time is hours. I'm sorry. So this is hours. So it's 3/4 of an hour. But we saw earlier that 1/4 hour is 15 minutes, right? 1/4 hour is 15 minutes. So this is like 3/4 hours. 3 times 15 minutes, which means it's 45 minutes. So the answer is it took her 15 minutes to go, and to return it must have been another quarter. So it'll be 60 minutes, 1 hour to come back. Now, if you just leave it as 3/4 of an hour or 0.75 hours, that's correct as well. So you can also say this is equal to 0.75 hours. That's perfectly fine an answer, as long as you include the units. There's both will be accepted as correct answers. Okay. All right. So now let's move on. There are 2 cell phone companies that offer different packages. Company A charges a monthly service fee of $36 plus 7 cents per minute talk time, and Company B charges a monthly service fee of $48 plus 2 cents per minute talk time. Okay. So one way to do this would be to come up with an example. So think of some examples. But this is not part of solution. But nonetheless, if you are just totally giving up on word problems, then rather than just giving it up, it's probably better to think of some examples and see if you can figure that out. And then after thinking of some examples, it might click. Okay, so suppose you have you use the phone just 10 minutes. So for 10 minutes. So in that case, Company A would be, you have a charge of $36, right? And then plus 7 cents per minute, or $0.07 per minute, but you've used 10 of these, right? So that's going to be $36.7, right? On the other hand, Company B would be charging base fee of 48, but only 2 cents per minute, and you use 10 minutes, so it'll be 20 cents, because every minute is 2 cents. If you use 10 minutes, that's 20 cents, right? So it's going to be 48.2. Now, some of you might already see what's going on here, but just to be more confident of what we are doing, let's try to see what happens if we change this to 100 minutes. In that case, this 10 would be changed to 100, right? And this will now be what, instead of 36 plus 0.7, it'll be 36 plus 7, so it'll be $43. And this will be $50. Okay. After doing these examples, now you can write down the answer, which is that if X is the amount of minutes, then see, whatever this was, we're placing it right here. So we see that company A would be 36 plus 0.07x, whereas company B would be 48 plus 0.02 x. Okay, so that's how you make this linear model. Okay, so now the question is, how many yield equal monthly statements from both companies? I think you probably want to say how many minutes of usage yield equal monthly statements from both companies. So we were looking at the case when the amount charged by company A is equal to the amount charged by company B. And once again, I don't like decimals, so I'll just multiply by 100 both sides, so that it's 3600 plus 7x equals 4800 plus 2x. So 36 times 100 is 3600, 0.07 times 100 is 7, 48 times 100 is 4800, 0.02 times 100 is this. Okay, and then we are going to subtract both sides, 2x from both sides. Subtract 2x from both sides. Also subtract 3600 from both sides. Another way to say it is like I'm just moving this to the right side, so it becomes negative. This 2x, it's added, but moving to the left side, if you cross over, it becomes negated, right? So 7x minus 2x is going to be 5x, and 4800 minus 3600 is 1200. And therefore, we see that x is equal to 1200 divided by 5, and that's going to be equal to 240 minutes. Okay, so the answer is 240 minutes. The length of a rectangular label is 2.5 centimeters, less than twice the width. The perimeter is 43 centimeters. Find the area. Use algebra to solve problems. The guess and check method will not give you any credit. Alright, so when you have such a thing, make sure that you draw the picture. Don't try to solve such a geometry word problem without drawing a picture. Make sure you draw a picture. Okay, so let me draw a picture. What's happening is that you have some kind of a rectangle, and that rectangle has length. So let's think about this. Length and then width. Okay. Now I'll just put this side as the length. I'll put as x, and then this side as width because it's the other side. But I don't know which one really is called the length and width. You just have to make sure that if one side is called length, we're going to put the other side as width. So y is the width, and x is the length. So x is is length and y is width. Okay. Now let's think about this. The length is 2.5 centimeters less than twice the width. Now, it would be nice if you can just figure out how to convert this into an equation, but it's not that easy. So you want to think of a very simple example of a sentence that's very similar to this, but it's simpler. Okay, so one way to make this simpler is to say that x, so we're just going to think about the length of the rectangular table. This entire thing is just x, okay, is 2.5 less than twice y. So think about this English sentence. And see, the way you can understand something is by a lot of times thinking of an analogy. And when you think about an analogous situation, you want to think of something that's quite simple. Now, this is a lot simpler than this longer sentence, so it's better, but I still don't like this 2.5. So just put 2, because decimals confuse us. Right? So what you want to do is first try out this thing. See if you can convert this into equation. And then once you convert it into equation, then try to apply the same reasoning to this sentence here, which is much more complicated. Okay? All right, so let's work on this for a while. And let me tell you, this is not a waste of time. It's much, much better than just giving up on a word problem. So don't give up on the word problem. Think of something simpler and then try to trace back. Okay? All right, so x is 2 less than twice y. Okay, so first of all, it's easier if you have some numbers instead of this. So let's make another one. What if it's twice of, what if y is 3? So twice 3 is what? Twice 3 is 6. So you would say that this is equivalent to 2 less than 6, right? And what is 2 less than 6? That's 4. X is 4. Okay. So what we just observe is that if y is 3, x is 4. And how did we get that calculation? Well, we first did twice of y, right? We did we first did 2y, right? And that gives us 6. Right? And sometimes it's good to just replace what you had before. So just put it as 2y, right there. So if y is 3, x is 2 less than 2y, and then you got x as 4 because you subtracted 2, right? So we kind of see that this means x equals to 2y minus 2. Right? So 2y, twice of y means 2y, and then 2 less means you subtract 2. So please try this out and make sure that you can think like this. Yeah. And now let's apply it over here. So this first sentence is like, since length is x, this first part would be x. And then since width is y, the second part will be y. And that means x equals to twice of y is 2y minus 2.5. That's what we get, okay? All right, so that was a bit tough, but it's doable if you try to think in examples. All right, and then it said the perimeter is 43. Okay, find the area. So you have to find the area after finding the perimeter. Okay, so what is the perimeter? In this picture, if this is x, this is y, and you also know that this side will be y as well, and this side will be x, right? And the perimeter is the sum of all of these, so you have two x's and two y's. So we can say that the perimeter equals, if you go around like that, it's x plus y plus x plus y, but that's same as 2x plus 2y. And what does it say? Perimeter is 43, would mean that 2x plus 2y is equal to 43. Okay, so we're almost done. We can now take these two equations as system of equations. So let's write that down. System x equals to 2y minus 2.5 is one equation, and 2x plus 2y equals to 43 is another equation. And when you solve a system, you solve one of the equations for x. This is already solved for x, so we can now take this and plug it into the next equation, right? So if I plug it in, it'll be 2 times 2y minus 2.5. This parenthesis is absolutely necessary because 2 is multiplied to the entire thing. Don't forget the parenthesis, okay? Plus 2y equals to 43. And 2 times 2y is 4y, minus 2 times 2.5 would be 5, equal, and then plus 2y equals to 43. Now, 4y and 2y are like terms, so they combine to be 6y. On the other hand, you can add 5 both sides, so you have 43 plus 5 on the right side, and that means that 6y is equal to 48, and now you have y equals to 48 divided by 6, and that gives you 8. So, and the unit for length right here is centimeters, so it's 8 centimeters. So we found out that the length of y is 8, and then the width of y width is 8, and then length is 2.5 less than twice the width, right? Twice of 8 is 16. 16 minus 2.5 will be 13.5. Or you can just simply take 8 and plug it in here. Okay, so if I plug in 8 into this, because that's the value of y, we get x equals to 2 times 8 minus 2.5, which is equal to 16 minus 2.5, which is equal to 13.5. Okay, and now what do we have? We now have oh, this previous one. The question is find the area, right? Find the area. So now you have to find the area. Area is base times height, or length times width. So you have to multiply those two. So it's 13.5 times 8, which is let's see, 104 plus 4, 108. That's what you get, right? 104, yeah, 108. So the area is 108, and the correct unit is square centimeters. Okay. All right, inequalities. First inequality, you just multiply 2. And then you have 2x minus 11 less or equals to 0. Add 11 both sides. And now divide by 2. And when you divide or multiply anything in an inequality, you have to stop for a minute and think about whether you're dividing by a negative number or not. This is a positive number, so the equal sign is not changed, the inequality is not changed, but if you divide by a negative number, the direction of the inequality has to be changed, right? This inequality has to be flipped if you're dividing by a negative number, but we're dividing by a positive, so this is fine. Okay, so that's the answer. Now, if you want to draw this on the number line, it will be like, here's the number line, and then you have 11 over 2, and the value of x is before 11 over 2, including 11 over 2. So the correct way you should draw it is it's everything before 11 over 2, and then it includes this 11 over 2, so you have to circle this in, okay? Okay, so that's how you draw it. And in terms of the interval notation, since it comes from negative infinity and it stops at 11 over 2, including 11 over 2, the answer in interval notation, it's negative infinity until 11 over 2. And 4 to infinity. And because you have more than one interval, you have to put a connecting u between them. So that's the answer in interval notation. Find the solution using completing the square. So to complete the square, let's just remember that take half the coefficient of x, then square it. Just remember this one thing, and that's going to help you out solving all of these. Okay, so first, what is half of the negative 4? That's negative 2. So you have negative 2 as the half, and if you square this, you get positive 4. So that's why you have to add both sides. We're going to add 4 on this side, add 4 on the right side. If you do that, what happens is that this left side will be a complete square. In fact, it will be x and then this number right here that you got. So it will be x minus 2 squared. And to really see what's going on, if you haven't done this enough times, then you should do it now. Just take a moment, stop the video, and just take this, FOIL it out to see that indeed this is same as this. Okay, that's a very important thing to verify. If you already know that these two are the same, that's great, but if you don't, you should take a moment to verify that. Okay, now how do you solve this? You have to get rid of the square by taking the square root both sides. And when you do that, never forget that if you take away the square, then you need a plus or minus. Plus minus square root of 5. And then finally you add to both sides, you get x equals to 2 plus or minus square root of 5. Okay, same idea here. Take the half of the coefficient of x, which is negative 3. So take negative 3 over 2. That's half of negative 3, right? You take the square of that. When you square a minus, is positive. When you square a fraction, it's square the top, square the bottom, so it's 9 over 4. That's the square. And that number has to be added to both sides. Oh, but before that, you should subtract by 1. So we have, this should be moved to the other side as negative 1. And now that we figured out that 9/4 is the one that you have to add, we're going to put this 9 over 4, add to both sides. Okay, the left side is now going to be x, and then this number right here, minus 3 over 2, squared, equals to 1 is 4 over 4. And because 9 minus 4 is 5, you end up with positive 5 over 4. And once you're done with completing the square, now you just have to take the square away and then move this to the other side. That's how you solve it. Okay, so we're going to say if you take the square root both sides, the x minus 3 over 2 is going to equal to plus or minus of square root of 5 over square root of 4. Okay, and therefore if you add 3 over 2 both sides, you get x equals to 3 over 2 plus minus square root of 5 over 2. Okay, this part C is a bit different than what we've been doing before, and the reason is there's a number that's in front of x squared. Now if you have anything other than a 1, then the principle we started with, this thing, take half the coefficient of x and then square it, that wouldn't work. So before you do anything, you have to divide everything by 2. Okay? Let's do that. You divide this by 2, this by 2. All the terms must be divided by 2. So we have a 3-term equation, and then all the terms are divided by 2. And 2 divided by 2 will cancel, and you get x squared, exactly what we want. We don't want anything in front of x squared, okay? It should be just 1 times x squared. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so 4x. And then you have 3 over 2 equals to 0. Okay, so now the task is to complete the square of this thing. And you just do what you've been doing before. So subtract 3 over 2 both sides so that you have minus 3 over 2. And then half of 4, what's that? To get the completing the square, you have to take the half of the coefficient of x, right? So half of 4 is 2. You take the square of 2, and that's 4, and that's why you end up adding both sides. Okay, so we add 4 both sides. And immediately left side now becomes a complete square, x plus 2 squared. On the other hand, 4 is 8 over 2, right? And 8 minus 3 is 5, so you end up with 5 over 2. Which now you can take the square root both sides to get x minus 2 equals 2. Plus or minus of square root of 5 over 2. So that's what you get. And then you get x equals to negative 2 plus minus square root of 5 over square root of 2. But it's always a good habit to rationalize the denominator, so let's do that. You can multiply to top and bottom square root of 2. And that makes your answer as negative 2 plus or minus square root of 5 times square root of 2 is square root of 10 divided by square root of 2 squared. This is 2. So that's the answer. Okay, same deal as before. You have to divide by 3 because there's a coefficient in terms of in front of x squared. So we're going to divide by everything by 3. Okay, and then that gets rid of the 3 in front of x squared, exactly for the reason, that's the reason why we're doing this, right? You divide by 3 so that this 3 will cancel out. And then 3 over 3 is 1, so that's what we get. Move the 1 to the other side. It's plus 1. And now you take half of 2/3. So you're going to do negative 2/3, but if you take half, that's like dividing 2 by 2, so you get negative 1/3 squared, which is 1/9. That's the number we have to add to this. So let's add 1 over 9 plus 1 over 9. And then this left side will now become a complete squared, which is x minus 1 over 3. See this number right here, that's the one that this thing, it goes in here. And then this 1 is 9 over 9, so 9 over 9 plus 1 over 9 is 10 over 9, right? So this is going to be 10 over 9 on the right side. Take the square root both sides. So after taking the square root, the left side will be x minus 1 over 3. But then make sure that you have plus or minus of square root of 10 and square root of 9. So that x is equal to 1/3 plus minus square root of 10 over 9. But what is square root of 9? That's 3. So you just have 3. And we should write this as 1 plus minus square root of 10 over 3 to save space, okay? To simplify. So you have 1 plus minus. So that's the final answer. Solve the quadratic equation by factoring. So for this first question, you have to factor by using the x-chart. Let's think about the x-chart. This is known as the AC method, so you multiply a to c, which is 10. Its sum is -7. And you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add up to -7. What is that? Well, I think I know the answer is -2 and -5, right? So once you figure this out, you can break up the middle one. So you can say this is equal to 2x squared minus 2x minus 5x plus 5. And you factor by grouping. You group the first two and factorize. See that 2x is a common factor, so put 2x. X minus 1 is what you're left with if you factor the 2x out. Minus 5. I see 5 and 5 being the common factor for both. But if you see a minus, that also has to be factored out. So you have 5 times x minus 1. Now when you do these things, make sure you get it correct by multiplying it back. So 2x times x does give you 2x squared. 2x times -1 does give you -2x. -5 times x gives you -5x. -5 times -1 gives you +5, right? And therefore what you get is, if you factor out the x minus 1, you get 2x minus 5 times x minus 1. Okay, and that's equal to 0. And now you use the zero factor property and you say either 2x minus 5 is 0, so if you add 5 and divide by 2, this is x equals to 5 over 2. And for this one, if x minus 1 is 0, x would be 1, right? So the answer is 5 over 2 or 1. So answer, x equals to 5 over 2 and also 1. Okay, let's do the same thing for this next question, but this one, you first have to move the 12 to the left, or else you can't factor. You can only solve a quadratic equation by factoring if you factor the left side when the right side is 0. If the right side is not 0, then all that factoring doesn't do anything for you, okay? So this is what we need to factor, and because of the AC method, 6 times 12 is 72. So what we are looking at is, we're looking at an X chart where you have -72 as a times b, and the middle one is, I don't see a number here, but that really means it's 1 times x, so 1 is here. Now, because 72 has so many factors, it's not so easy figuring out the two numbers that multiply to negative 72 and add to 1. But if you take 72 as product of two numbers that differ by a lot, then they can't give you 1. So for example, if you do 12 times 6 as 72, then to get a negative, one of them will be negative 12 and the other will be positive 6, right? But because these two numbers are differing by so much, if you add them, you get negative 6. So these are not good numbers to pick. Instead, what you should do is you should choose 8 times 9. They're only 1 apart. 8 and 9 are only 1 apart. So if you put a minus to the 8, negative 8 plus 9 does give you 1, and negative 8 times positive 9 gives you negative 72. So there everything works out fine. So you have 6x squared plus, actually minus 8x plus 9x minus 12 equals to 0. So I took the x and split it into negative 8x plus 9x. Make sure that these two combine to what you have in the previous one. And now we factor by grouping. This one has 2x as a common factor, so 2x times 3x minus 4. And then this one has 3 as a common factor, so if I factor by 3, it will be x. 3 times 3x is 9x, and then 3 times 4 is 12. So that's what you get. Alright, and then you see that 3x minus 4 is common, so you can factor that out. And if you factor it out, you have 2x plus 3 left. And that's equal to 0. Again, you draw a line in between. You have to solve this equal to 0 and this equals to 0 separately. 2x plus 3 equals to 0 gives you 2x equals to negative 3, and therefore x is negative 3 over 2. On the other hand, if you have 3x minus 4 equals to 0, then 3x equals to 4, and therefore x is equal to 4 over 3. So those are the answers. Answers are x equals to 4 over 3 or negative 3 over 2. Okay, next set of questions. Solve the following equations. You must simplify your answer. When I see any equation with a fraction, I just multiply by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 2x. That just gets rid of the denominator and makes it a lot easier to handle. So I'm multiplying 2x to this 6. 2x cancels, leaving you with just 5. X and x cancels, and that means you have 2 times 2, which is 4. And then when you multiply 6 to 2, that's 12x. Which means that 12x equals to 9, and therefore x is equal to 9 over 12, and you should reduce if you can. They're both top and bottom are divisible by 3, so it's 3 over 4. And that's the correct answer. Now you do have to check because it's an equation with fractions. However, none of the this number doesn't make the denominator a 0, so that's fine. For a fractional equation, you just have to avoid any case when the denominator becomes 0. Okay, another equation with fraction. This time, just multiplying by x minus 2 won't be enough, because while multiplying by x minus 2 on this one will cancel the denominator, this 2 won't go away, right? So you'll have to multiply 2 as well. So we're going to multiply 2 times x minus 2 to everything, so that this 2 and this 2 will cancel, leaving you with just x minus 2 times 2x plus 5. And then this one, x minus 2 goes away, so you have 2 times 3x. And this one is x squared minus 2x times 2, so it's 2x squared minus 4x. Okay, let's continue. If you FOIL this out, you get x times 2x giving you 2x squared, x times 5 giving you 5x, negative 2 times 2x giving you negative 4x, and then negative 2 times 5, these two multiply to negative 10, minus 6x equals to 2x squared minus 4x. Now the 2x squared here can cancel the 2x squared here, so if I subtract 2x squared both sides, these are going to go away. And then 5x minus 4x, oh, I also see minus 4x and minus 4x, that also would go away. Let's get rid of them first and see what we have left. 5x minus 10 minus 6x will be equal to 0. Okay, and then if I do 5x minus 6x, that gives you negative x. So this is what I get after combining like terms. And if I add x both sides, we get negative 10 equals to positive x. So this is the answer. Again, check if this answer is going to make the denominator 0. It doesn't, so everything's fine. Another equation with fractions. This time, notice that x squared minus 2x factors as x times x minus 2. And because of this, if I multiply x times x minus 2, it will cancel this denominator as well. So let's try to multiply x times x minus 2 to all the terms. And then we can cancel several things. So first of all, this x minus 2 will cancel this x minus 2 in the bottom. Therefore, you have x times 2x plus 1 left. This x will cancel with this x in the bottom. So therefore, you're going to get x minus 2 times 3. And as I noted before, this x times x minus 2 is going to cancel this denominator completely, leaving you just with negative 6. X times 2x gives you 2x squared. X times 1 gives you x plus 3x minus 6 is what you get if you multiply by 3. That's equal to negative 6. If you cancel away the negative 6 both sides, you get 2x squared plus 4x, because x plus 3x is 4x, and then you get 0. Okay, so you can factor this by saying 2x times x plus 2 equals to 0. And once again, if you draw a line between and say 2x equals to 0 and x plus 2 is 0, you end up saying 2x equals to 0, which will give you x equal to 0, and then x plus 2 can be 0, which means x is equal to negative 2. However, if you go back and see the original equation, you see that x equal to 0 is not a valid answer because it will make this denominator 0. You can't have a 0 in the denominator, so this is an extraneous solution. Since x equal to 0 makes 3 over x undefined, x equal to 0 is an extraneous solution. Okay, therefore, the answer is x equals to negative 2. That's the only answer. Okay, now equation with rational powers. If you have a square root, the way you solve it is by moving the square root to one side, and you square both sides, so you get x squared equals to 2x plus 3. And then now you move everything to the left side, you get x squared minus 2x minus 3 equal to 0. And while you can solve this by using the quadratic formula, it's faster if you can factor. See, x minus 3 times x plus 1 gives you the 0, because as you can see that negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2, and negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Okay, because of this, now you have x equals to 3 and x equals to negative 1 as the solution. But then you have to check whether the original equation is satisfied by these things. Any equation with square root, you always have to go back and check. So let's do a check. X equals to 3 will give you 3 equals the square root of 2 times 3 plus 3. And 3 is equal to square root of 9, and that's okay. Yeah, so check. Insert. Is there a check mark? I'll just use this. Check. That doesn't look good. Check. Okay. Now let's check x equals to negative 1. In such a case, you have negative 1 equals to square root of 2 times negative 1 plus 3, and that means negative 1 is equal to square root of 1, but square root of 1 is just 1, so this is saying negative 1 is equal to 1, which is not true, so not true. So that means x equals to negative 1 is an extraneous solution, and x equals to 3 is the answer. Okay, G. When you have a question that uses x to some power equals a number, it's good to express the other number as some powers as well. So you should notice that 5 squared is 25, and 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, right? 5 times 5 times 5. So it's 25 times 5, which is 125, right? So since 5 cubed is 125, you want to rewrite this as 5 to the third power. Okay, once you write in that format, the formula that you want to make use of is that if you have a to the nth power to the nth power, if you have an exponent outside the parentheses, inside parentheses like this, then the exponents multiply. So this rule is what we want to use, and the way we are going to use it is by taking this equation, and I'm going to exponentiate both sides. I'll exponentiate both sides by the reciprocal of this number. So you have 3 over 2 as the exponent, so we're going to put 2 over 3 so that they are reciprocals. Okay, so same deal here. If you do power of 2 over 3, you must do the same 2 over 3. Okay. So just look at whatever that's in the exponent of x, take the reciprocal of that number, you exponentiate both sides with that same number. Okay, if you exponentiate both sides with the same number, equality still holds. Okay, so that's what you have, and then we now apply the above, which is saying that this left side will be x to the 3 over 2 times 2 over 3, right? Same deal here. It'll be 5 to the 3 over 2 times 2/3. Oh no, sorry, this wasn't 3 over 2. This is 3, right? Okay. Yeah, so I'm just using the previous formula, which says that these two must multiply, so I'm just multiplying the numbers. 3 over 2 and 2/3 are getting multiplied, and 3 and 2/3 are getting multiplied. On this left side, if you multiply any number to its reciprocal, it's 1. And on the right side, 3 and 3 cancel, so you get 5 squared. And that would mean that x is equal to 25. Okay, so let's do a similar question like here. You want to rewrite 4 as 2 squared. And now the solution idea is very similar. You take power of both sides as 5 over 2. This one as well, to the 5 over 2. And that's going to get rid of this 2 over 5. So 2 over 5 times 5 over 2 will just cancel, leaving you with just x minus 3 on the left side. On the other hand, 2 times 5 over 2 will cancel the 2 in the denominator, and you're going to get 2 to the 5th power on the right side. 2 to the 5th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 32. And therefore you get x equals to 35. Okay. Use substitution to solve the following equations. So this is a fourth order equation, which seems like very hard, but you can think of x to the fourth as x squared to the squared, because these two multiply, right? 2 times 2 is 4, so you can rewrite like that. And if you put both x squared in parentheses, you see that x squared, if you use t equals x squared, then this now becomes a quadratic equation in t. Which is easy to factor. Is t plus 5 times t minus 3, right? Because 5 times negative 3 gives you negative 15. 5 plus negative 3 gives you 2t. So now you have either t equals to negative 5 or t equals to positive 3. And the danger of substitution is that while it makes the question simpler and doable, it's easy to be fooled by your own handwriting, thinking that since I have something equal to something, this must be the answer. But that's not the answer, because the original question is posed in terms of x. We have to find the value of x. So you can't stop here. What you need to do is you have to replace t by what you started with. So since t is x squared, you have to do these two things. Now, first of all, this doesn't make sense. Cannot hold, because x squared cannot be negative. Okay, if you take any real number and square it, 0 squared is the only case you get 0, but every other case you get a positive value. You can never get a negative value, right? So the only case that it does work is when x squared is 3, and in that case you have x equals to plus or minus square root of 3. Okay, similar idea here. Again, you want to think of this part as square of this one. So to rewrite the equation so that instead of x plus 5 to the 2/3 power, think of this to the squared, because then 2 times 1/3 is 2/3, right? So you have this equation, and now you set this as t. So you want to set t equals to this thing, and that's going to turn this entire thing, where this is now t, this is t, or let's just write t squared here, t squared. So you have a quadratic equation in t, which you can factor by t plus 5 times t minus 4 equal to 0. So that would mean that t is equal to -5 or positive 4. Okay. Again, you can't stop here. You have to take each of these and let it equal to these separately. So we have one equation that comes from here, which is this, and you get rid of this by something similar to previous one, right? So you take power of 3 both sides, to the power of 3, to the power of 3, and because 1/3 and 3 are reciprocals, they cancel away, which will leave you with x plus 5 on the left side, and -5 to the 3rd power is -125. So that gives you x equals to -120. No, -130. And subtracting by 5. Okay, now let's work on the other one. T equals to 4. On the other hand, will become, this is what t is, so copy that over here. Same idea, you take powers of 3. If you take power of 3, the 1/3 will disappear, leaving you with x plus 5, but on the right side, leave 4 to the 3rd power, which is 64. So if you subtract by 5, it will be 59. So those are the answers. So answer, x equals to -130 and 59. Alright, now line equations. So you have to know that slope is equal to change of y over change of x, right? And change of a quantity is always terminal value minus initial, so you have to do 2 minus 4. So this is the final value of y coordinate, and this is the initial value of the y coordinate, right? So this is what you have to do, and then divide it by 1 minus -2. Those are the x coordinates, so you do 1 minus -2, and that gives you -2 over +3. So that's your slope. Then you have to know the point slope form, and point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where I'm thinking of the very first one as x1 comma y1, and I'm thinking of this as x2 comma y2. So I'm just plugging in instead of x1 -2, so this x1 will be -2. So let me just copy this. We'll just take this -2, put it right here, and then 4 is y1, so this 4 should be replacing over here. And then since m is -2/3, this is what you get. Okay, and maybe you might want to simplify this. Well, it's not necessary, but some people might want to do it this way. +2. Okay, so this is the point slope form. Find the slope intercept form of the equation of the line through 6, -4 and parallel to -2x plus 3y equals to 6. Okay, so here you first have to take -2x plus 3y equals to 6, because parallel means same slope. So we're trying to build another line that has the same slope with this one, but if we don't know the slope, how can we figure out what slope to use, right? So we have to first find the slope by solving for y. And the way you solve for y is by moving the 2x to the other side, so it's plus 2x. Let's put 2x plus 6. See, minus becomes plus if you move it to the other side, right? And then you divide by 3 and you get y equals to 2 divided by 3, and then 6 divided by 3. And that gives you, well, it doesn't matter what 6 divided by 3 is, this is the slope that we have to use. So, to be parallel, the slope of this line must be 2/3. It has to be the same slope. Okay, so you have 2/3 as the same slope. And the question is asking for slope-intercept form, but it's easier if you start with just the point-slope form. So let's just use the same point-slope form as before. So we're going to just take that. We just found out that the slope is 2/3, so we're going to replace them by 2/3. x1 is 6, so we're going to put 6 over here. y1 is -4, so we're going to replace this by -4. Okay, and that gives you y plus 4 equals to 2/3 of x minus 6 times 2 is 12, so you have 12 over, oops. So this is going to be 12 over 3. Okay. But then the question is asking for the slope-intercept form, which means you have to solve it. This is like the slope-intercept form. So we're going to solve this by subtracting 4 both sides. And 12 over 3 is 4, but this 4 comes to the other side as 4. So that the final answer is y equals to 2/3 of x minus 8. All right, next question. Find the x and y intercepts of -2x plus 3y equals to 15 and graph the line. Okay. So to get the x-intercept, set y as 0. Okay. To get the y-intercept, set x as 0. So let's try this, okay? First, you want to set y as 0, so you -2x plus 0, or 3 times 0, equals to 15. So that means, since this is just 0, you're just dividing by -2. So that immediately gives you that x equals to -15 over 2. So that's your x-intercept. Y-intercept, same idea. You just set this thing. This time put x as 0. which means that you can solve for y by dividing by 3, so that y is equal to 15 divided by 3, which is 5. Now once you have these intercepts, it's easy to draw the graph because you just have to put the number to the plane. Let's say this is 5, and then negative 15 over 2 is negative 7.5, so it's definitely over here. Negative 7 over 5. No, it's 7.5. I'll just put 15 over 2. Okay, so I'll just put negative 15 over 2. And the line is just connecting these 2 points, because a line is determined by 2 points. If you know 2 points, then you get the line. So that's the graph. Find the slope-intercept form of the equation of the line through negative 1, 2 and perpendicular to x minus 2y equals to 12. Now what you need to know is that perpendicular slope is negative reciprocal. In other words, you take the reciprocal of the slope and you put a negative. That's what a perpendicular slope is. So let's first find out the slope of this thing, which is x minus 2y equals to 12. If you solve for y by moving the x to the other side, and then if you divide by negative 2, you get y equals to negative 1 divided by negative 2 is positive 1/2 x, and then 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. So you get 1/2 as your fraction, or the slope, right? What is the reciprocal of 1/2? The reciprocal of 1/2 is positive 2, but then you have to put a negative in front, so perpendicular slope is negative 2. Now use the point slope form. Y minus 2, and slope is negative 2, so it's negative 2, and then x minus negative 1. Okay, so you have y minus 2 equals to negative 2x. Negative is positive, but there's another negative, so it's 2 times negative 1, so it will be negative 2. And then finally, you have negative 2 minus negative 2 is 0, so it's y equals to negative 2x. That's the answer. For the 4 lines A, B, C, and D shown left, which one has the slope of the least value? Okay, so let's look at the slopes. Remember, the slope is rise over run, right? So you just have to pick two points and think about rise over run. Here, to go from this point to this point, you have to go 1 down, then you go 2 steps right? So the rise is negative 1, rise is negative 1, and run is 2. So that's the slope. Now you just have to do this for all of the other ones. So here you go down 2 and you go right by 1, so slope will be negative 2 over 1. Rise is negative 2, run is 1, so it's negative 2. C